I didn't know the reaction. Man, we're gonna react to how good was Isaiah Thomas, really. Man, I heard of Isaiah Thomas. You know what I'm saying? I heard that he was a pretty good player. Let's get straight to the video.
When we talk about the most legendary players of the 1980s, usually three players are the first names to get brought up: Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and a young Michael Jordan. And although those players should be the first names to come up, there's another star who should be mentioned in that group, but sometimes gets overlooked: Isiah Lord Thomas. Nowadays, when you hear people talk about the greatest point guards of all time, you'll hear a few names come up. Obviously, Magic Johnson still stands on top, but after him, you'll hear people mention Steph Curry, John Stockton, or even Al Iverson in some cases.
Yeah, I like Al Iverson.
There's no player more deserving of the second spot on the all-time point guards list than Isiah Thomas. Isiah was one of the clutchest performers in NBA history. Not only was he a two-time champion and a finals MVP, but he had numerous legendary moments in the playoffs where he simply took over the game. Like in the 1984 playoffs against the Knicks in a pivotal fifth game, where Isiah dropped a whopping 16 points in the final 94 seconds of the fourth quarter, forcing the crucial game into overtime. Or how about Game 6 of the 1988 NBA Finals against the Lakers? Minutes into the third quarter of a close game, and Isiah severely sprains his ankle. He appears as if he could barely stand, but Isiah, being the fierce competitor that he is, stayed in the game and basically played on one foot.
Dang.
Despite the fact that he was playing through pain and on a swollen ankle, Isiah caught fire and carried the Pistons on his back. He set an NBA Finals record that still stands today with an amazing 25 points in a single quarter. And
that's crazy, on a sprained ankle.
That on a severely sprained ankle. Isiah ended the game with an incredible 43 points, 8 assists, 6 steals on 56% shooting from the field.
Dang.
Many people remember Michael Jordan's legendary flu game in the 1997 NBA Finals. But if you ask me, this game from Isiah Thomas on a bad ankle was the most heroic finals performance in NBA history. Guys don't drop 25 points in a single quarter of the NBA Finals, especially when the player can barely even walk right due to an injury. But that's just the kind of player that Isiah Thomas was. Isiah, in many ways, was so ahead of his time. He had an extremely high usage rate and often operated as the focal point of the Pistons' offense. He was a small and shifty guard who could facilitate, could score from the perimeter, and could finish even when challenged in the painted area. He was also one of the greatest ball handlers of all time, with the ability to create space with his agility and
he looked nice.
One thing Isiah doesn't have is longevity and the all-time statistics because of how short his career was. He battled with ankle injuries throughout his career, and his final season was cut short due to a torn Achilles. Isiah was only 32 years old when he played his final game in the NBA. To help put that in perspective, this upcoming season would be Steph Curry's final year in the NBA if he left the game as early as Isiah Thomas did. That's just insane to envision, considering how Curry still appears to be in his prime and to have so much left in the tank. So what I'm essentially saying is that the overall career numbers of Isiah Thomas don't accurately reflect his greatness. When Isiah was on his game, he was an all-time great and one of the baddest dudes in the league. Isiah had the numbers, the success, and the skills to be talked about among the all-time greats. But when people talk about Magic, Bird, and Michael, they often don't include Isiah, even though...
Yeah, I don't really hear nobody talk about Isiah Thomas.
Well, if you ask me, I think it's simply because Isiah doesn't fit the poster child image that the NBA is going for. Isiah was the leader of the violent bad boy Pistons. He said things about Magic Johnson that spread rumors Magic didn't appreciate, and in another instance, he said some racial comments about Larry Bird that sparked a media reaction and a press conference. He just simply wasn't the most well-liked guy to a lot of people, and the NBA didn't advertise him like he was. Whether it's from his team's unpopular and violent style of play, or from comments he made that tarnished his image a bit, Isaiah simply doesn't get the recognition he deserves based on his incredible talent. Here's an example. Michael Jordan's flu game is legendary and referenced often in the NBA community, but Isaiah Thomas's 25 points in the single quarter of the NBA Finals on a bum ankle is simply treated like an afterthought. Why is this? Because one player is more marketable than the other. Imagine if Jordan had a game where he dropped 25 points in a single quarter on a bad ankle of the NBA Finals on the NBA's biggest stage. If MJ had been the one who did that, people in sports media would bring up that performance just about every day. In my last How Good Was He Really video, I compared Scottie Pippen's game to Kawhi Leonard. But in this video, it's honestly hard to compare Isaiah Thomas to a modern player because he was truly so unique. Isaiah was the best ball handler in the game at the time, and he was an elite facilitator and could be an elite scorer when he needed to be. When you hear people talk about a player's play style, they'll often describe a player as a score-first player or a pass-first player. For example, Rajon Rondo is clearly a pass-first type player, while Steph Curry is a shoot-first type player. You can't really put Isaiah into either of these categories, though, because he was so well-balanced and so good at doing both. For example, no other player in NBA history ever averaged over 13 assists a game for a season while averaging over 20 points per game. That was Isaiah Thomas in his prime. He was one of the greatest dual threats the NBA had ever seen. If I had to compare him to a player from recent history, I would say Isaiah was like Chris Paul in his prime during his New Orleans days.
Yeah, Chris Paul is nice. Still is nice.
Undersized and
but then nobody talk about Chris Paul like that.
An elite ball handler, just like CP3. He could score and facilitate with the best of them, just like the prime Chris Paul, and they were both fierce competitors. The thing that really separates their greatness, though, was Isaiah's ability to raise his game when it mattered most. Isaiah was clutch, and you could never relax on defense against him in the meaningful games, because you knew Isaiah was coming at you with the best he had to offer. So just how good was Isaiah Thomas? Simply put, way better than most people realize. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more relevant NBA videos and for more content on the NBA's rich history. I think this is a series I plan on continuing, where I put a spotlight on a player and we examine just how great he really was and who they're comparable to. Let me know in the comments section how good you think Isaiah Thomas truly was, and let me know which player you would like to see me do a video on next in the How Good Was He Really series. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Man, that was nice, but that's the end of the video. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Just nobody don't really be talking about Isaiah Thomas like that. But make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I'm out.